Welcome, fantasy people. This is the Rookie and Pro podcast,
I am the rookie.
and I am the pro. And together, we're going to be bringing you on an adventure, taking the rookie on an adventure through his first fantasy football season. And then I'm the seasoned veteran of about 20 years playing fantasy football. And
20 years.
yeah,
Wow.
yeah, I know it
I
goes
did
by
not realize
really
it's that.
fast.
Did not know it was that long that you've been doing this.
Yeah,
Man,
started like middle of high school. It's
wow.
it's kind of crazy. So I am
Dang.
by no
Okay.
means a pro with the analytics and everything else like that. But I kind of have my own ways of doing things, and it's worked out for me here and there. But I'm definitely not, winning my league every single year. Uh, just having fun with it. So in this episode, what we're going to do is we're going to cover roster positions and scoring. And we'll just use the default on Yahoo for those that are joining us. Okay, first things, scoring options, fractional points, yes. Now, the reason why, two reasons. One, the way that the points are as we go through this is, I'll give you an example. Receiving points, you get 1 point for every 10 every 10 yards. Every 10 receiving yards is 1 fantasy point. So if a wide receiver gets 9 yards on a catch, that's still 0 points. You have to hit 10. So if at the end of the game you have a wide receiver that got 49 receiving yards, you only get 4 points. If you use fractional points, then that actually gives you more points. So then if you have 49 receiving yards at the end of the game, you get 4.9 points. And that adds up over all of your players and everything to help get you more points. And then you don't feel like you're slighted as much. It also helps eliminate ties a lot more because it's much easier to tie when you're using full points. And they're really shouldn't be as much. So I recommend using fractional. Um, it helps make your team better, helps with the point scoring. Allowing negative points, absolutely, because turnovers definitely require negative points. Defenses that give up a bunch of points should, be penalized for that. Offense maxes you out 26 categories. So default passing touchdowns 4 points, interceptions -1 points. This is where negative points come into play. For me personally, I stick with 6 points for passing touchdowns and -2 points for interceptions. I know that at least Yahoo has modified it to be 4 points for touchdowns and then -1 for interceptions just because of how much of a passing league it's become. I just don't like it because if you have your quarterback is playing his number one wide receiver that week, you know, uh like for instance, like if I have Josh Allen as my quarterback and, last year his number one receiver was Stephon Diggs, and I'm playing Stephon Diggs on the other guy's team that week, and Josh Allen throws a touchdown to Diggs, well, Josh Allen only gets 4 points, but Diggs is going to get 6. So I'm already getting 2 points less than the other guy. And then if Josh Allen throws an interception, well, that's -1. I don't like it because the volume of passing touchdowns is not so great that it warrants eliminating points and making them less valuable. And that's just my personal opinion. But we'll play with 4 points and 1 points, -1 for the interceptions. You can add stats for passing attempts, completions, incomplete passes, sacks. We won't touch anything with that. Like sacks would be negative points for getting sacked. As far as QBs go, passing yards standard is 25 yards for every point. It's been like that forever. So basically, 100 yards passing is going to give you 4 points. You can also do stats for pick sixes thrown, 40 plus yard completions, 40 plus yard passing touchdowns, and passing first downs. I don't mess with any of that. The reason why you'd kind of start adding all these categories is if you wanted like really, really high scoring teams. Honestly, like if you make the passing touchdowns worth 6 points instead of 4 and interceptions -2 instead of -1, you get plenty enough scoring. Normally your teams are going to be averaging, normally about 100 points a week or more. Rushing touchdowns, 6 points. Again, that's why I'm going to just keep on harping on it because I'm just kind of annoyed that they decided that touchdowns of any kind other than passing are still worth 6 points. You could do rushing attempts. I don't feel like it's, worth it for, big runs, big running touchdowns, first downs, just to kind of increase your scoring. Rushing yards, 10 yards per point. That's been standard forever. And then same thing, receiving touchdowns, 6 points. Receiving yards, 10 yards for a point. It's going to be the same thing as rushing. Receptions. So this is where we kind of get into what they call PPR or points per reception. I don't know. I want to say like a handful of years ago or so, Yahoo started making half a point standard for receptions. Because it's become more of a passing league. I like it. PPR would normally be a full point, so it'd be 1 point per reception. So if you have 10 receptions in a game, for your wide receiver or your running back, you'd have 10 points. The half point is just, it gives it a little bit extra with the points. It definitely adds value to running backs, especially what the running back position has become today, where there's a lot more catching out of the backfield. And so, every time they receive, get a reception, they get you half a point. It's honestly very helpful for negating fumbles. When receivers and running backs fumble, it kind of helps you make up those points. Kick and punt returning, basically, real cut and dry. Just if a kickoff or a punt return gets returned for a touchdown, it's 6 points. This will apply to the individual players. So if you happen to have a player that ends up being a kick returner and punt returner, there's not a roster spot for it, but they will get 6 points for it. Return yards, just another way of adding points and everything if you want to dive into it. The miscellaneous, so 2-point conversions are worth 2 points. Whether it's rushing 2 point, receiving 2 point, passing 2 point, it's all 2 points. Fumbles lost is -2 points. It doesn't matter who it is. So if a running back fumbles, tight end fumbles, wide receiver, quarterback, anybody fumbles, it's -2 points. Offensive fumble, return for a touchdown, also 6 points. Kickers. Standard is 3 points all the way up to 39 yards. So whether it's a 1-yard field goal or a 39-yard field goal, if a kicker makes it, it'll be 3 points. If they make a 40 to 49-yard field goal, it's 4 points. 50-plus yard field goal is 5 points. It helps with the values because, the 40 plus, on out, those kicks are less successful than the 0 to 39. So when they make them, it helps you add points, helps make the kicker a little bit more valuable. You can do missed field goals, and that would be negative points. I don't do it. Honestly, your kickers are having a hard enough time being relevant that when you add negative points to it, I feel like it takes away from the position, and just personally, like, kickers need all the help they can get. Um, you know, adding value to really like helping make your roster good. And some people might disagree. Field goal yards per point. This one's new. It started a couple years ago. I have added it. When you click on it, field goals, total yards. So, pretty sure I went with whatever they kind of used, and I would have to go into my league and look at it. I won't in this one. What I do like about it is over the last 2 to 3 years that this has been a thing. I tried it. It's made the kicker position more valuable. It really has. It's kind of helped, you know, make kickers as a whole more valuable instead of, wanting, like, you got to focus on specific kickers that are really good. A lot more of your kickers add value across. It helps, definitely helps with your total team points for the week and everything. Um, so I really have enjoyed that addition. And it's really interesting because, if one kicker, they might make a lot of field goals from 40 and beyond, all those field goal yards, like, that adds up. That helps um, add to their score, and that can make the difference between winning and losing. PATs, everyone made, it's a point, just like in the NFL. I don't do negative points for missed because, like I've said, I'd rather see them, you know, be more relevant instead of continually, taking away value and everything. Defense, special teams, as a whole, this is the point system. So if a defense pitches a shutout, you get 10 points. If they allow 1 to 6 points, it's 7. 7 to 13, 4. 14 to 20, you'll get 1 point. Once the defense allows 21 to 27 points, you get no points. And then if you allow 28 to 34, you're going to see -1. And then if you allow more than 35 points, it's -4 points. So if you just get absolutely blown out like the Broncos did last year in Miami, 70 to 20, the Broncos defense definitely was putting up -4 points in that case. Now, for every sack you get 1 point, so that would help, take away, either add to the points you're getting for the points allowed, or add to the, take away from your minus points if your defense is doing horrible. Interceptions is +2, so defense being the opposite of offense. If an interception is worth, it used to be -1 or -2 for quarterbacks, but it's -1 now. Interceptions still aren't like so common that they made them only worth 1 point. So you got 2 points there. Fumble recovery, 2 points still. Any defensive touchdown of any kind, 6 points. Safety is worth 2 points, as it is in the NFL. A block kick is worth 2 points. Return yards, fourth down stops, tackles for loss, that sort of thing. Not going to do. Kickoff and punt return touchdowns, that's going to be 6 points. And that will be separate. So if you have a player, an offensive player on your team that scores a kickoff or on a punt return, right? That player will get the 6 points. But if you also have that team's defense will also get 6 points on it. There's not as many starting players that you'd have on your roster being kick returners and punt returners anymore. So there's not as much overlap as you might think there would be. And then extra point returned, you'll get 2 points. It's very rare that it happens. If you want to get down into defense, you can start adding plus or minus points based on how many defensive yards a team allows. So basically what that is if the Cowboys defense allowed 400 to 499 yards of offense against their opponent that week, you could put in a negative number. If they allowed 0 to 99, you could put in a positive number and sort it out from there. Not going to do that. You have bonus stuff. If you want to get into the bonus passing yards, like if they have a 400-yard passing game or something, you can give them an extra 5 points or 2 points or whatever. Same with rushing, same with receiving. Not gonna, mess with any of that. So, gonna click save from there. And let's see. So one thing I don't like about Yahoo on here is if I hit save, it gives me 1. And if I hit go back, it just brings me to the page I was on. So I have to re-click on Commissioner's Tools, come over to Rosters and Scoring. Now we're going to look at roster positions. And we'll try to make this real fast for everybody. So it's really simple. 1 quarterback, 1 starting quarterback. That's what the 1 is. Is how many starting positions. You have 1 starting quarterback position. It's been standard. I have played with teams long ago in the past that have had 2. Makes it interesting. If you want to get silly with it, you can get silly with it. But this is standard. 1 quarterback, 2 wide receivers, 2 running backs, 1 tight end. And then you have 1 wide receiver / running back / tight end. This is what people would commonly call the flex position. So what that means is your wide receiver slots, you can only put wide receiver in those slots. It used to be 3 wide receivers, 2 running backs, 1 tight end. It's switched to 2, 2, and 1 as far as wide receiver, running back, tight end, and then 1 flex. So what that allows you to do is, let's say you do have 3 really good wide receivers.
Mhm.
You can start 3 good wide receivers. But let's say another team has 3 really good running backs. Well, you can only start 2 in your running back slot. Well, with this flex position, now you can start all 3 running backs. Let's say that you had 2 really good tight ends, and you don't have a 3rd good running back or a 3rd good wide receiver. You can play those 2 good tight ends. So it gives you more options to maximize your roster based on how you draft and the people you're able to pick up and just how players kind of pan out over the season, and gives you a lot more flexibility. You could do a quarterback flex. I have seen it before. Don't really play with that. Not going to do it. You have 1 kicker, 1 defense, and that's the entire defense. So you're going to select the Vikings defense or the Cowboys defense or the Chiefs defense or the Baltimore defense or the San Francisco defense. And those stats for the entire defense is what you're going to get credit for. The rest of these, this is where the IDP, the individual defensive player, comes in. You can do general defensive players. You can do so many defensive backs, linemen, linebackers, defensive tackles, defensive ends. so on and so forth. So, you're inactive, your bench. Your bench standard consisted of 6 players. So, what that means is you have all these roster spots, those are your starting, and then you can have 6 people on your bench, so 6 players that you're holding on to that nobody else can, have access to or whatever. And those are the guys that you're going to use to work into your lineup based on matchups, trying to give you the best advantage to put the best team forward every single week. Depending on your bench players, those are the guys that you might sacrifice to add somebody. Or you might have some really good players that are on your bench that you just want to hold on to, and you're waiting to try to figure out who you're going to start week to week and whatever else. Or you're holding on to cover for bye weeks. Injured reserve, 2 of them. So basically, if one of your players gets injured, you can put them on that IR. And what that does is it allows you to keep that player while opening up a spot on your team. So let's say your number 1 wide receiver gets hurt. Like last year, Justin Jefferson got hurt, right? Well, you don't want to drop Justin Jefferson because he's a really good football player. So you put him on IR in that slot, and what that does is that opens up one slot on your team, and you're able to go pick up another player. So, like, let's say you're like, all right, well, Justin Jefferson's hurt, while Jordan Addison's available, the wide receiver 2 for the Vikings, he's available on the waiver wire. You go add him so you can play him, Or let's say you have another wide receiver that you can plug into Jefferson's spot, and then you're like, I have this extra roster spot, and there's this really good running back I could use, but I don't want to get rid of any other players. You can add them. The issue is when that injured player is healthy, you have to drop one of your players off your team in order to make room to bring that player back, and you won't be able to really do much with editing your lineup and everything until the healthy player is out of IR and back, at least on your bench. So we're going to leave that and submit it, and that's going to cover rosters and scoring. I know that's just completely completely fire hose feeding you right now.
Yeah, so much information coming in.
How are you feeling? Because that's just I get it. And I'm trying to impart, I'll say 12 years of knowledge on you, because that's how long, I've had my other league for, being commissioner and everything. Most other times I just joined and everything. So just everything I've learned over the years. Yeah, I just opened up that fire hose on you and
almost
sprayed
2
you down.
hours of just straight shot learning and just like, okay, alrighty. I'm not entirely sure how to fit everything in, but this can be useful information as we go on. Sometimes you just gotta slot in information. It's like, okay, you don't know how to use this yet, but we're gonna learn as we get into the other sections as we do other videos. So
yeah, well, and the great thing is this will be there for everybody else to kind of go back and look at and pause and whatever you need to kind of go over that information over and over again. There's nothing wrong with that at all. So just let it soak in, and we'll dive back into the next steps. Because it did take so long. Yeah, with that, thanks for joining and everything and trying to take all that information in.